Hello and welcome to my channel. Last night I went to the theaters and saw Dune Part 2, and now I want to review it for you. For those of you unfamiliar with the Dune franchise, it's a science fiction adventure with lots of political drama and a bit of action. Dune is based on the novels by Frank Herbert, and the screenplay for Part 2 was written by Denis Villeneuve and John Spates. It was directed by Denis Villeneuve and stars Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides, Zendaya as Chani, and Austin Butler as Feyd-Rautha. The story for Dune Part 2 picks up where the first film left off. The House of Atreides has fallen. Arrakis is now under the control of the Harkonnen, and Paul and his mother are left fleeing into the desert with a group of Fremen led by Stilgar. We follow Paul's journey with the Fremen and his attempts to learn their culture while seeking revenge for his father. We watch him bond with Chani, learn from Stilgar, and capture the imaginations of the Fremen people. Paul hopes to gain the Fremen's trust and to one day lead them against the Corrino Empire. As Paul steps into his new role as the Fremen's messiah, the Harkonnen desperately fight for control of Arrakis. As their war against the Fremen becomes costly, Princess Irulan starts making moves to replace the leaders of House Harkonnen, bringing Feyd-Rautha to the battlefield. Like the first film, Part 2 sports a large cast list and spends time with named characters from several different groups. The majority of the screen time is spent with Paul, Chani, and a few other characters from the Fremens. They are nomadic people who travel through the deserts of Arrakis. Then we have the Harkonnens and their leaders, the Baron, Beast Rabban, and the new addition Feyd-Rautha, their nephew. The final group is the royalty of the Corrino Empire. We meet Princess Irulan and watch her scheme with the Reverend Mother Mohaim behind the back of the Emperor. The visual journey takes place on the sandy dunes of Arrakis with cutaways to a couple of different worlds, Yeti Prime and Catan. On Arrakis, we get a sandy, bright view, vast deserts, harsh conditions, and lots of lens flares. The other two worlds come with a unique look as well. Yeti Prime is filmed in near black and white, with the city and its people appearing in ghostly pale tones. Catan, on the other hand, looks like a paradise with elegant buildings and life everywhere. On these three worlds, we get a lot of dramatic shots of the characters thriving in their environments, few battles between the Fremen and the Harkonnen, and a lot of exposition about political plots, religious propaganda, and the value of spice. For a soundtrack, the movie uses ambient noise and a wide variety of instrumental tracks. The instrumentals tend to appear during dramatic moments and focus on building up the film's atmosphere. Each location gets a unique taste, but all of the tracks have a somewhat alien sound to them. There's a lot of humming, ethereal chanting, and echoey sounds. Whenever something dramatic happens, it tends to be accompanied by the film's signature chanting. Okay, so how was it? The story of Dune 2 is a complex tale that takes a long time to set up and even longer to play out. So it's definitely a slow burn, but there are many great moments along the way that make it feel like an exciting adventure. You get to spend time learning about another culture that survives in fascinating ways. You also get to see the Fremen's guerrilla warfare tactics in action several times throughout the film, and the Bene Gesserit's religious propaganda slowly taking hold over them. It's a rich universe with a lot to bite into. On the negative side, it felt like the film was trying to pack too much into the story. We're constantly flipping around, listening to big sections of exposition to get all the lore in, and it ends up being a little confusing if you don't stay hyper-focused. On top of that, most of the storylines feel a little bit rushed. A few more minutes with characters like Irulan or Gurney would have done wonders for their development. The cast as a whole did a good job. Each of the groups feels distinct, and we get to see a lot of rich emotion from the characters, and a ton of screen presence. For me, the big standouts were Austin Butler as Feyd-Rautha and Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides. Austin Butler's Feyd-Rautha is the big villain in this film. His presence is sinister and chaotic. Butler manages to copy Skarsgård's iconic accent and creates a character that is even more terrifying than the floating Baron, but far younger and even more ambitious. He creates a compelling villain that makes you believe he's a real threat to Paul. Timothée Chalamet's Paul goes through a tortured leader phase in this film. He's asked to do a lot of flipping back and forth between happy and haunted, and does a good job of appearing emotionally conflicted. He also gets to do a few big emotional outbursts in the film and nails them. Visually, the film is fantastic. The journey as a whole is beautiful to look at, with hours of scenic shots on display. The camera work is focused across the entire film, and they manage to give a unique appearance to every single location. The distinct visual styles for each of the planets worked well to differentiate them, and it created a nice contrast between the different groups and how they chose to live. The battle sequences were a little shorter than I would have liked, but they were still fantastic all around. The shots of the big worms coming out of the desert were spectacular. The CGI in general was well done. There was a lot of realistic texture work and fluid movement. Sound-wise, the film felt a bit sparse. There was a lot of great ambient noise, but the music came in quietly and didn't have much of an impact. They did manage to create some decent atmospheres in the different locations, but they didn't support the emotional journey at all. And they spent a lot of time repeating the same song over and over again. If you took a shot every time you heard the woman chanting, you wouldn't be able to finish the movie. Overall, I really enjoyed Dune 2, and I think it's a solid film. The journey was a bit rushed in places, but they managed to create a complex and fascinating universe that's fun to spend time in. The visuals are beautiful, the actors do a great job, and the story is well written. If you like sci-fi epics, give it a try. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 7 out of 10. Remember, these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye.